What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Swanson Productions for the love of sports. Today, we're going to be talking about the NFC winners and the NFC losers. I brought in my friend Anthony Conover to help discuss this topic today. Anthony, go ahead and introduce yourself before we dive right into all the teams we're going to talk about.
Yes, sir. Of course. Thank you for having me on, as always. Yeah, you can find me literally everywhere. That involves the Unwrapped Sports Network, Twitter for my personal accounts, Anthony Conover _ Gen Z Sports for one of my podcasts. I do a show Monday 7 Eastern with my boy Josh, where we talk about everything. Tuesday, I do a strictly football show with CJ. Another member of USN, strictly football, like I said, break down everything that happens throughout the week, predict the next week. And then Thursdays, I do backstop banter with me and Michael, where we talk about everything in the baseball world. So your boy's pumping out some pods, busy man, but always making time for more.
Definitely sound like a busy man. That is all of us in this company. We're all trying to reach that one goal. Before we start, guys, please press that subscribe button. If you haven't, you're going to find everything sports related, everything and anything, whatever you want, we got it. So let's dive right into this. We have a lot of teams to talk about. We're about halfway through the season right now. So I believe that's early enough to tell which teams are in it and which teams are not in it. So that's what we're going to be talking about. We might slightly, get predictions and take it from there. So let's pull up these teams, Anthony.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's start with the NFC East, and I hope some of the guys from Unwrapped are watching this right now, because the team we're going to start with is a big team in our chat, and that is the Dallas Cowboys. And to be honest, Anthony, I don't know if I'm 100% sold on the Cowboys yet, because if you look at the teams they played, these are the teams that you're supposed to be beating. Given that the one loss was from the Bucs, the Super Bowl champions, but they did look pretty solid in that game offensively. They attacked the corner, which is what the Bucs are weak on right now. But what do you think of the Cowboys? Yes, their offense is super powered. Like, they have a high-powered offense. The defense at times can be entertaining, but do you think they have what it takes to go to the next level?
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I, of course, get called a Cowboy hater for that, which, I mean, sure, I'm fine with that. But, I mean, like you said, I think their one impressive win to me is the Chargers. That includes the Patriot game. I am a Patriot fan. And even I don't think that is the most impressive thing. I mean, you beat the Eagles. I would pray to God you do that. You beat the Giants once again. I would pray you do that. So, like, those two don't really do anything for me. You lost to the Bucs, who obviously is a team that we know is going to be there at the end. Now, I mean, their offense might be the best, in the league. Definitely a top three, I would say. It's right there with the Bucs, right there with the oh gosh, their name just escaped me. The Bills. The Bills, actually. I think the Cowboys might be averaging like the second most points per game.
Yeah.
But I'm almost there with them. I have to see a little bit more. Their defense has been playing better than I thought. Obviously, Trey Diggs is playing out of his mind right now. He has the same amount of touchdowns as Stephon Diggs.
That is the question I wanted to talk to you about. Are we saying that Diggs is the best corner in the league right now? Because if you look at, yes, he has, I think, the most interceptions, I should say, but he is also giving up some of the most yards as well. So are we sold on that?
Is
it luck?
I think the interceptions are luck. If you look at his interceptions, I swear to God, he has the best timing I've ever seen. And listen, sometimes in sports it is all about luck. It's not really about skill sometimes.
It's true.
Every single interception it seems like he gets is a tipped pass, and he's just somehow standing there. I don't know how he did it. I don't know what prayer he said to the football gods, but it is certainly working this season.
Yeah, whatever's broke, don't fix it, right? I got Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Schultz all on my fantasy team for the Unwrapped Sports Fantasy.
That works.
And as of right now, it's working. So Dallas Cowboys, whatever you're doing, keep it up. I think within the next couple of weeks, they play the Chiefs. That should be a good game to tell us where the Cowboys are at going against great teams. So let's move on from the Dallas Cowboys. I think without a doubt that they're going to win this division. You can see on the standings, guys, there's no one close in that division. The division isn't very I guess it's not one of the most competitive divisions, I guess you could say. Do we have any topics or comments on Washington, Philadelphia, or New York? I mean, I'm not going to say they stink because any football team can win, but do we have any comments going forward on what they can do or what they should do?
Don't worry. If you can't say it, I will. They're terrible. The rest of this division is just not good, as you can tell. I mean, the rest of the division combined has the same amount of wins as the Cowboys right now. The Giants are rebuilding for the, previous 55 years. It seems like they actually have the worst record in the NFL since 2017. Yes, that includes the Jags. That includes the Lions. Those includes all of those dumpster fire teams that you would think of, the Jets. I live in New York, so go New York football, apparently. Jesus. But yeah, New York is rebuilding. I don't think Daniel Jones is a problem, though. I will say that. They can't protect him. The offensive line is terrible. The defense that was a strong suit last year has played awful this year. I think it's the same thing with the Eagles. You shouldn't really expect anything out of them. This is Jalen Hurts' first full year starting. I think technically he still has not started a full season. He hasn't started a full 16 games yet. So that's just another team that's rebuilding. And then Washington is a surprise to me. I thought that they were going to win this division this year, not because I thought the Cowboys were going to be terrible, but I just thought Washington with that defense, and not that I'm a big fan of Ryan Fitzpatrick either, but I at least thought that he was going to bring stability to their quarterback room, and their defense can't stop anybody. That's one of the big shocks to me this year is how much their defense fell off. I think it was a top
Especially
three
from last
defense.
year.
Yeah, it was a top 3 defense last
Yeah.
year, and this year it seems like they couldn't stop me and you if we were out on the field. So it's definitely a bit of a surprise there.
I'm going to say ain't nobody can stop me when I'm on the field, bro.
I mean, hey, you know what? Back in Mighty Mites, I was kind of a beast. I'm not gonna lie.
All right. So, and I hate to say it, the New York Giants, their one win is against my team, the New Orleans Saints. It sucks. It sucks to say, and that we had that game too. But let's move on to the other teams. We're gonna go on to the NFC North now, and let's start from the very top. Another division, where you could say that Aaron Rodgers always gets to the NFC conference and, always chokes in the NFC conference. But for the Green Bay Packers, there is always no challenge for them. And that is why you always see the Green Bay Packers on top and in the playoffs. At least that's from my opinion. I'm sure a lot of people will agree and disagree on the channel. That's what you get when you have sports debates. But let's talk about the Green Bay Packers. So far, they're 5-1. Their one loss is from my New Orleans Saints, so I will say I'm proud about that one as well. But the Packers are looking good. Of course, Aaron Rodgers is always going to handle the quarterback position. He's got Devontae Adams. Aaron Jones looks good. The defense is solid as of right now. What do we think of the Green Bay Packers? Do they really seem that much different from last year?
I have said this in the chat a few times. I've gotten some pushback on it. I still think the Packers are the worst 1-5 or 5-1 team I've seen in a while. They struggled with the Bengals. They struggled with the 49ers, who were beat up at that point. I know that they ended up kind of destroying the Lions, but until halftime, that game was very close as well. And then you beat the Bears 24-14, which is nothing, crazy. No, this is not any different than we've seen always. They're going to win the division because you're in a division with 2 rebuilding teams and then the Vikings. The Bears don't really know what they're doing yet. They couldn't decide if they wanted to start Fields, and obviously Detroit is 0-6. So the Packers don't have much competition.
The city of Detroit, man. I feel so bad. I feel so bad for Detroit.
On Generation Sports with me and Josh, we actually do a segment each week. It's called Together We Pray, where we pray, for some of the players or anything. We have actually, for the first time ever, added an entire fan base to the prayer circle, and it is the Detroit Lions. I mean, they just can never have nice things. You have Barry Sanders, but you have nobody else. Then you have Megatron, but you have nobody else. Then you have Matt Stafford, and you have nobody else. So, I mean, if only they could just get good players at the same time, maybe they would actually be good.
And, you can even throw the Detroit Pistons in there. We're not going to dive into basketball. We're going to stick to football, but just the whole Detroit sports
the
organizations.
Tigers are terrible.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to watch, Any comments going forward about the other teams? I mean, look, for me, I don't know if Matt Nagy is the solution for Chicago. He's got some weapons on the team, but I just don't think the play calling is right. For Minnesota, I don't understand it. Minnesota would probably be in playoffs if they just had a good special teams, man. They blow 4 to 5 games. It feels like a year. They should be, I think, 5 and or probably like 4-2. I think they've blown one game so far from special teams. The kicker missed like a 30-yard field goal. I can't remember who they were playing. But the Vikings and the Bears, they have a little bit more promise than the Lions, at least, don't you think?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the Lions are a dumpster fire right now. They they're textbook definition rebuilding. Like they're basically a lock, for the number one pick this year. Obviously, they have Jared Goff, but I don't think anybody would be surprised if they drafted a quarterback and traded Goff. Uh, they're just bad, so you're not surprised there. And then for the Bears, this is kind of a retooling, rebuilding situation for them. Obviously, they drafted Justin Fields, so they think that they have their person of the future. And then the defense is getting a little bit older, but they're still pretty solid. And then for the Vikings, this is kind of just the same story every year. They're another team kind of like Washington that confuses me. Mike Zimmer's a big defensive guy. Like that's what he's known for. And it seems like their defense recently, for the past few years hasn't been very good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually been the offense that's been pretty good. I'm not a believer in Kirk, but
it flip-flopped because I believe it was 2-3 years ago where the Vikings defense started to fall off. They got rid of their 2 defensive ends, I believe, that were like absolute stars. And then ever since then, it's a high power offense and no defense. But I don't know if I'm a believer on Kirk either. I don't know if you can believe in the Vikings. And I don't know if you can believe in that special teams because, like I said, if they had their special teams in check,
baby.
they probably would have made the playoffs at some point last year. They literally gave up, I believe, 3 or 4 games last year for just special teams. Let's move on to one of my favorite divisions because this is the division my team is in, and it is a very competitive division this year. We got the NFC South. Obviously, you got the reigning champions, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You got my New Orleans Saints. You got the Carolina Panthers that are doing all right, and the Atlanta Falcons who are going to be the Atlanta Falcons. But going forward, do we see Tampa Bay making it to the Super Bowl this year?
I mean, I don't know how you're going to bet against them. They're winning right now. They're 5-1, and that's with basically their entire defense, or their entire defensive secondary, I should say, on the injured list. They're going to end up getting back, all their corners, and then we'll really see what they'll be able to do. But their offense is just, I mean, it's unbelievable. You have Antonio Brown who's playing like he's back in Pittsburgh, and he's your third option. He is literally the third option on the team. You have a Hall of Famer at tight end, a Hall of Famer at quarterback. You probably have 2 Hall of Fame wide receivers in Mike Evans and Antonio Brown. And the defensive line is still very good. I still believe that they're giving up like the least rushing yards in the NFL. And obviously that's good, but they can't really stop anybody through the air right now. But like I said, that is because everybody is hurt. I mean, they even went out and signed Richard Sherman, and he got hurt. So I definitely see, Tampa going back. It is very hard to repeat, so I'm not going to sit here and say that it's a lock because that's a very strong word. But I'll say I'll be surprised if Tampa isn't in the Super Bowl come the end of the year.
Interesting. Just give it time, though, because they still have to play the New Orleans Saints twice this year, and the Saints run train over the Bucs in season, at least.
Unless it's the playoffs, I was going to say.
Unless it's the playoffs, which we don't want to talk about. Drew Brees had an injured shoulder. It was time for him to go. But do not doubt in Sean Payton. He knows how to play Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. We obliterated them last year. I'm not going to say that we're going to do it again this year, but let's move on to the next topic since we're talking about it, the New Orleans Saints, in which I am a high believer that the Saints can be a wild card this year, even with a brand new team. And as Saints fans, that's all we can ask for. We're not expecting a division win. We're not expecting a Super Bowl, but I believe some of us Saints fans are expecting at least to make a wild card, maybe possibly make some noise. It is possible. Yes, Jameis Winston can be very iffy at the quarterback position, but he does have an arm, and we do have some receivers that can go for long bombs, especially if you're matching against up the Bucks, who can't guard through the air right now. What do we think of the Saints so far? They're 3-2. In my mind, they should be 4-1. They blew one game to the Giants. We're not going to talk about that, but what do you think of the New Orleans Saints?
Yeah, they definitely should have beaten the Giants in that game. That's, there's been a few Twilight Zone games this year. The Bills losing to the Steelers week 1, the Saints losing to the to the Giants and all that. But listen, I'm surprised that the Saints are kind of good. I am not, and I will repeat this, not a Jameis Winston guy. Not even in the slightest bit. If you ever want to hear about that, you can go look at the many battles that me and Caleb, a big FSU guy. So of course, he has to back Jameis over there, but I'm not a Jameis guy. I think he makes too many mistakes. I mean, you look at the Bucks; they won a Super Bowl last year, with basically the same roster. They just replaced the quarterback.
But you have to give it Tom Brady, the GOAT.
No, absolutely. You did replace Jameis with the GOAT. But, I mean, they were 7-9. Like, they weren't even 500 with James, a 30 for 30 season. And I'm not talking about the ESPN documentaries. So, I'm not sold on Jameis, but like you said, I think that they can be a wild card team. I will agree with you on that one. I would not be shocked to see the Saints there that's probably because I put a lot of respect into Sean Payton and into that defense as well.
Great coach. Love the coach, love the guy. As of right now, as a Saints fan, it's tricky because you don't see the full trust in Sean Payton with Jameis Winston. As they get into the red zone, you see Hill start to step in.
That's what I got to ask you. You're a Saints fan.
I am.
And so you have more knowledge of this. How do you feel about the Taysom Hill situation? Because I'm not a fan. I thought it worked with Breeze. Listen, now it's getting old.
So here's the thing. I think Jameis should be starting. I think that's for sure. I think that Taysom Hill should be playing any position you want him. You want to play him running back, play him running back, fullback. You want to play him receiver, tight end. He can do it all. He's one of those gadget gear players. I love it. But yes, you are right. It is starting to get old. Teams are starting to pick up on what's happening. And if Taysom Hill doesn't improve his throwing, then that option isn't going to work anymore because teams know that it's coming. So if he can't lock down that passing, they can't lock down some passing plays with him, some play options, then we got to figure something out because it is interrupting Jameis Winston's groove, especially in the game versus the Giants. Jameis Winston was starting to heat up, right? Threw that bomb pass to, I believe, Deontay Harris and got the touchdown, but there was a flag on it, BS call. And then he subbed in Taysom Hill, and they did the same exact play. I don't know why they do that. He did a horrible throw, bombed it out, interception, and that started the Giants' fourth quarter comeback, I believe. So going forward, it's hard to earn Sean Payton's trust because he's a great coach and he's been through a lot. All he's ever known is Drew Brees, right? And that's one of the greatest quarterbacks ever to play the game. You can argue that. But there's growth that we have to go through. We have a whole brand new team, especially the offense. The defense is kind of similar, but we do have some new pieces. But here's where it gets tricky. Let's move on to the Carolina Panthers. And personally, here's what happens every year. The Carolina Panthers always start off like 4-0, and then they just get so bad. And we already saw the Christian McCaffrey injury. He's out for a while. They did get the cornerback from the Patriots. I'm blanking out on his name right now.
Gilmore. Don't worry about it. Don't talk about that. I'll cry on stream right now.
But they do have a solid defense, Carolina. They do. Do they have a high-power enough offense? I'm not sure. It's also new. What do we think of the Carolina Panthers? Because they are right there with the Saints and currently have the tiebreaker over them.
Yeah, I think a lot of people got tricked. I would halfway put myself in that category as well with the Panthers. And I've said this many times because my co-host over there with Gen Z is Josh, and he's a huge Panthers fan. So we obviously talk about them every week, and it's almost startling to me like how much of the offense went through CMC. Like, I understand that he is very good, unbelievable, but like, it was a person that got hurt last year. And then this is also the NFL, which is just my mindset that like one big hit and you could literally be out for the entire year.
Yep.
So it's kind of surprising to me that, Matt Rule, Joe Brady, all them, supposed to be great defensive or offensive minds, I should say. And they don't seem to have a backup plan without having McCaffrey. And the team has completely shifted without him. I think they started off 3-0. McCaffrey goes out. Sam Darnold's looking good. He's leading the league, not the NFC, the league in rushing touchdowns. And then McCaffrey goes out, and now the offense looks terrible, and the Panthers lose 3 games in a row. So I
guess
was
that
never a big
testifies
Sam.
to the greatness of CMC, though.
Oh, no, absolutely. I think he's one of, he's not the pioneer of the dual threat running back, because obviously you can go back and look at, the Falks of the world. But I think that McCaffrey is the one that really, made it so he's basically a wide receiver playing running back. Like, that's how impactful he was on that. But, I never liked Sam. Like I said, I'm from New York. I had to watch a lot more Jet games than I've ever wanted to in my entire life. So I've never been a Sam guy. When he got there to Carolina, those first 3 games, I was like, okay, maybe the Jets really are just that terrible. And by the way, the Jets are terrible no matter what. So it's not all on Sam, but those first 3 games do it good. And then after that, he's kind of returned to the Sam Darnold of the Jets. So I'm not really sold on them either. I think that they're probably going to end up right. I think this is the standing. So what we see right now is what we will see at the end of the year.
Interesting. We won't even go into the Falcons because I don't think there's much hope there. So let's move to one of the divisions that has always been the most interesting, but not as much this year, due to credit that there have been some injuries from the 49ers and the Seahawks. But let's talk about the Arizona Cardinals. Are they for real this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to say that they are by now. They've beaten some pretty solid teams. I know that they obviously handled the Browns last week, so I'm going to quickly try to look up who they have played so far. But I mean,
good teams.
Yeah, all right. So I got their schedule up right now. They beat the Titans, which, all right. They beat the Vikings, the Jags. They obviously beat the Rams. They won another division game with the 49ers, and then they blow out the Browns. And, we said that the 49ers have some injuries, but
that was without a coaching staff as well.
That is
which is
very,
huge.
Very true. That is very true. I think one of the position coaches was the head coach for that game. That's definitely not what you want. But yeah, I think what really set the tone is when the Cardinals basically dominated the Rams for 4 quarters. And, this is the big shock of the NFL season so far to me. I had the Cardinals finishing last. And
last in the division?
Yes.
Whoa.
Now, wow. I will say this, though. In my defense, I only had them finishing last because this division is so good. Like, I knew the Rams would be good getting Stafford. I thought the 49ers would actually stay healthy for 1 year. That's my bad because we all know that that's not even possible for them. And then obviously the Seahawks are with Russ, I think, can win any game no matter what.
Oh, yeah.
And I literally said, I think if you put the Cardinals in probably any other division in the entire NFL, they would come in first. I really thought that. But since it was this one, they were just not going to be that good. I thought the 49ers, getting everybody on defense back.
They have made some key additions. So they have made some key additions around. They brought in Watt for the defensive end, right? They also brought in AJ Green this year, didn't they?
Yes, sir.
Which is another lethal receiver
Drafted
to add to the
Rondale Moore.
Yes, so they did make some pieces this year. And I think the dangerous thing about the Cardinals is the quarterback. Okay, Kyler Murray, right? Yeah. It's like the story of David and Goliath, right? Just because he's short doesn't mean that man can't run. I think to succeed in today's game, especially if you're a team, your quarterback has to be lethal. The only way you're going to win Super Bowls without being a player that's going to roll out of pocket is if you're Tom Brady. You can just have weapons around you and make every single throw, or you're like Drew Brees like that, right? But in today's game, especially where you see more of the athletes that are even more athletic than the people from back then, you have to have that
You need an
backup
elite quarterback.
option. You need that backup option though. Let's say a play doesn't work, right? Kyler can go out there and make something happen. Like, I don't know if you remember if it was week 1 or week 2, he rolled out of the pocket all the way to the right, did a spin move, and then like threw across his
Oh
body.
yeah, he's
Yeah, I
ridiculous.
that is what like makes a team, the difference between a good team and a great team in my mind. So debating about this, the Rams are still in this, right? Like, they will still grow as a team. Are the Rams just as good as the Cardinals right now? What do we think? You still think they have to grow? Was that game a fluke? Like, where do we put the Rams in position to Cardinals, right? Because there can only be one of the top seeds, right? The other one will get a wild card positioning, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's tough. I think the Rams and Cardinals are neck and neck. I wouldn't like if you asked me to put one over the other. I really can't tell you. I'm not going to sit here and lie and act like I would. Um, I think if the Rams had played the Cardinals a week later, then it would have been a different outcome. I'm not saying that they would have won, but I don't think they would have gotten blown out because if you remember, the Rams played the Bucks the week prior. And the build up to that game was, the two top seeds. These are the two teams that are going to be there at the end. So there's a lot of hype after that. There's a lot of hype. You win against the Bucks. You play very well against them. So you're at an all time high on that roller coaster, and then there's going to be a drop off. Like the emotions wear off and everything of that nature. So I think that they kind of overlooked the Cardinals because all of their focus was on that Buck game. And I mean, if you think about it, I think that was week 4 when they played the Cardinals.
I believe so. Yeah.
So we didn't know that the Cardinals were the Cardinals yet because they're 3-0 at that point, which is impressive. But up to that point, they hadn't played anybody crazy. Up to that point, they had played the Titans, Vikings, and Jags. So you're 3-0 in that stretch. It's kind of like a congratulations thing. And this was supposed to be, the marker to see how good they actually were, and they went out and they
got the job
Rams
done
pretty well. So
yeah.
Like I said, I think if they play them a week later, after the Rams had time to kind of calm down and get off that high of beating the Bucks, it might have been a little different. But I don't think that there's a big gap in skill here.
I do believe that they play each other again, though, right?
Yes,
or are they?
Yeah. In the same division, you play each other twice.
There's one team that you play once, though, right?
No, you play all of your division 2 times a year.
Okay.
And then, so they play the Rams. What is this? Week like 13
when do they
looking like?
13. Okay, so that will be an indicator to me to see which team is really on top, because by then you want to start activating playoff mode.
Oh,
you want to be there. You want to have your team together, know your team's identity, how you're going to win a game, do all of that. So it should be very interesting to see going forward, because I've always felt so bad for this division, because you could be like 10-3 or 10 and like how many games they play now? 17 now?
Yeah, it messes me up too.
Yeah,
now,
they just keep on
10
adding.
6, you'd be 10-7. There's no more 8-8s anymore. You're 9-8.
Yeah, so they can end up like 12-5 and still get a wild card. I've always felt bad for this division, but that's what makes this division so much fun, is that it's so great. So with that being said, guys, we went through all the divisions. We gave you our breakdowns. This is a halfway point. Anything can change. Injuries can happen. Teams can grow. Teams can get better, and teams can get worse. So with that being said, Anthony, do you have anything left to say before we end this video?
No, yeah. Thank you for having me. Like I said at the beginning of the show, and then just follow me everywhere. And we just got our first little big boy sponsor for Generational Sports. So make sure everybody goes
Very
download
nice.
Underdog Fantasy and use code Gen Z, baby, for $10 on your first deposit.
Awesome.